you could take away a couple of things from the Federal Reserve's meeting overnight, I would say that they would be this. We need to focus on quality tech, inflation benefactors, and also separately, we learned overnight that markets believe stablecoin stocks will continue to rise up and benefit. And we're probably going to see a continued rise of stocks that can benefit from humanoids. My name is Jessica Amir, a market strategist here with Mumu. It's great to have your company on this 19th day of June. Happy Thursday. So shares mostly fell overnight, as did gold. But even though gold fell, we are seeing more calls for gold to rise up to 4,000 US an ounce. Meanwhile, we also saw a bunch of commodity prices move lower, and it seems that investors are perhaps adjusting their portfolios now, expecting fewer US interest rate cuts and probably stagflation. Plus, we've also seen investors buy into a little bit more quality stocks in the NASDAQ 100, and it appears that investors believe that many of the NASDAQ 100 companies will be able to ride out the wave of higher inflation and higher US interest rates. Particularly, I want you to think about the fact that NASDAQ 100 companies, we recently learned that they're growing their profits the most on Wall Street. They're growing their profits by 24% year on year. Meanwhile, we also saw investors overnight turn into physical assets that typically do well in stagflation. This is why we saw utilities and property or real estate investment trusts do well. But all in all, the takeaway is that three sectors were the only sectors in the US that moved up overnight: tech, utilities, and real estate investment trusts. As for stocks making the biggest moves overnight, Tesla and Nvidia rose the most out of mega cap tech companies. And this is because new research suggests that they could be the biggest benefactors of the $1.7 trillion robot wave. Now, US came out with fresh research overnight saying 300 million humanoid robots will be hitting markets by 2050. Obviously, they'll need chips to function. So think about Nvidia. And Wall Street is already thinking that Tesla could be building out more humanoids than any other company. And this perhaps reflects the moves that we saw overnight with Nvidia and Tesla rising the most out of mega caps. All in all, UBS also thinks that by 2050, 86 million humanoids could add $400 billion to global automation revenue, that's US dollars, and $7 billion to rare earth revenue. So this is something for you to consider. All in all, UBS sees auto parts, semiconductor companies, and rare earth refiners benefiting the most from this new humanoid wave, naming specifically Nvidia, Honeywell, TSMC, Cognex, and Amphenol, as well as Tesla, to benefit the most. So that's something for you to consider. Humanoids, huh? Who would have thought that UBS has joined into that bullish wave? Changing pace, I think we really need to reflect on the fact that the majority of the Fed's committee members overnight said that they don't see any US interest rates coming or any interest rates cuts coming this year. This basically means this year, for the rest of the year, we could probably see the best returns in quality companies, and secondly, those that benefit from higher inflation. So that's something for you to consider, especially the fact that inflation will probably pick up and interest rates will probably stay where they are now. So that brings in the discussion about oil. So if oil stays up at these levels, it's up 21% in 1 month. It's risen by about $14. That will add about 0.4% to inflation. This is not good when the US central bank has said that they see unemployment rising, as in more people to be out of work, and they see lower growth or GDP. They see GDP falling to 1.4%. This is why I'm saying you really need to consider stagflation themes playing across the Asia Pacific, not just in the US. And that also means that you need to consider what that means for your portfolio. The other thing that I want you to take away from today is that you should expect investors to focus on investments that are going to be connected to stablecoin. And the reason for this is because overnight we saw the US Senate pass a bill that could create a regulatory framework basically for stable coins, which could spark growth in a nearly already $260 billion US market. So, if the lower house follows suit, we could see a federal framework for the use of US dollar pegged stable coins. And this is where it gets really exciting. We've already seen astronomical moves in some stocks that are benefiting from stable coin. So, I want you to think about one that I'm going to flash on the screen now, and that's Circle. In case you've been snoozing, Circle shares have been roaring up. So their shares jumped 33% overnight. Another stock that's benefiting from stable coin is Coinbase, but we'll get to that in a sec. But let's just focus on Circle. So Circle is the issuer of the USDC stable coin, and their shares are up about sixfold, and they hit $200 at one point overnight. But remember that they recently IPO'd at $31. So they've had a remarkable run since that IPO. That was on June 5. And this basically highlights that investors are pretty thirsty for stable coin, obviously, as well, given the demise of the US dollar. So this is a stock that you need to consider. If we do see stable coins legislated, this would be a key benefactor. Another stock that we touched on is Coinbase. So why does Coinbase benefit? Well, stable coins have become a huge part of this company's revenue driver. In fact, they're the biggest growth driver of Coinbase's revenue. As we recently saw from Coinbase's report, they experienced a 50% year-on-year jump in the first quarter at the hands of stablecoin related income. And Coinbase, for those that don't know, Coinbase also co-founded the USDC stablecoin, and they've got a 50% stake in that with Circle. So every time the USDC is getting purchased, they get 50% of that revenue. So Coinbase is a stock for you to watch, not just Circle. Meanwhile, what else can you expect across Asia and indeed for Australia investors today? Well, obviously, we've touched on stagflation. I'd be expecting stagflationary trades to continue to bode well. And of course, inflation benefactors and investors locally are probably going to be seeking out how they can get their own access to stablecoin. But I do think we will see overnight buying. Even though the US market is closed, investors probably will be lining up into those stablecoin benefactors that we've spoken about. Last but not least, keep an eye on jobs data today. That could make things interesting if you are trading local Aussie stocks. For more information on stocks that we've mentioned today, head over to Moomoo's platform. It's great to have your company as always. From all of us here at Moomoo, have a great day.